Jen from Patchwork and Poodles, and today we're going to make together a Scrappy zipper pouch. These are a really fun way to use up a variety of scraps that you might have in your stash, and they make really fun gifts as well as just something to keep to put all your little knickknacks in. So let's get started. To make a Scrappy zipper pouch, you're going to need 2 pieces of fabric cut to 8.5 by 10.5 inches. These are going to be our lining for a zipper pouch. You need a 9-inch zipper. I've got 2 here. I'm not sure which one I'm going to use yet, so we'll figure that out. A 2-inch square. This is for our zipper tab. This is what a zipper tab is. The end of your zipper here, that little piece of fabric. 2-inch square. 2 pieces of batting, at least 9.5 inches by 11.5 inches. These are our foundation that we're going to quilt our tops on. And a variety of scraps. I am using the Beauty and the Beast collection by Riley Blake Designs today, as well as some Riley Blake basics that I've thrown in here. Optional is a little 3-inch piece of twill tape. This is what twill tape is. It's kind of like a ribbon. You could also use ribbon if you wanted. This is going to go on the side of our zipper pouch here. What we're going to start by doing is cutting all of these scraps into 2.5-inch squares. We're going to need 40 2.5-inch squares. They're going to make the outside of our pouch. There's 20 on this side and 20 on that side. You can also use mini charm packs, which you can buy from manufacturers. These are 2.5-inch squares that are already pre-cut for you with a variety of fabrics and would work great in this project. To cut all of my scraps, I'm going to use my Accuquilt. So I'm going to show you how I do that. Okay, so here's my Accuquilt. This is die number 2 that comes with the 8-inch cube. It's going to cut 4 at a time, 2.5-inch squares. I'm going to start by pulling some of my scraps here and layering them onto the die. You can layer up to 6 layers of fabric onto this die. So I'm going to start with some of these scraps, which don't quite make it all the way across, and that's okay. As long as we extend past the edges of the die, we're going to be fine. So I'm going to put this one here. Use this one. Now, since we can only put up to 6 layers, this technically counts as 2 because in the center, they're both layered on top of each other. So just be careful as you are stacking all of your fabrics up. I'm going to put this one on top. And you'll notice I just laid it right on top. I didn't cut it yet. We're going to cut it later. It's going to come through the machine and then we'll be able to cut it. So that's 3, making sure that it covers. And I'm just going to put 1 more. Like I said, you can put up to 6, but I'm going to do 4. And the reason why is because some of my other prints, I want to fussy cut them, and I'll show you how I do that. Okay, so I've got 4 layers on there. I'm going to put my mat right on top, and then I'm going to go ahead, turn the crank, and feed it through my machine. 1 push, there we go. Alright, here we are. We've got some squares. I have 4 of these guys. 4 yellow ones. Some roses. See all these extra bits? We're just going to throw these pieces away because they don't really need to be part of our quilt. Obviously they're a little bit too small to use for anything else. I like to actually hold on to them, and I stuff dog beds with them. Okay, so here's the start of our 2.5-inch square collection. Sometimes I have a really cute print and I really want to fussy cut it. Like this one here is really cool. I'd like to get that castle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to layer it onto my Accuquilt die, trying to eyeball 1/4 inch away at least. So it's not a perfect fussy cut, but what I'm trying to do is I want to make sure that when I cut it, I'm going to have at least 1/4 inch all the way around so that I don't lose the castle. You're going to waste a little bit more fabric this way, but I think that it just adds such a fun dimension to your quilt that you're able to fussy cut it a little bit. So I'm going to fussy cut this one on top. I'm just going to do 2 because I It's harder when you want to fussy cut them to do multiple layers, because once you cover up that die, it's hard to see what those layers really look like anymore. Okay. That corner didn't quite cut. There we go. Look at that. Look how cool that is. So once I sew 1/4 inch all the way around, I won't lose the castle, which was the main objective. And it was really easy. I didn't have to mark anything, cut anything with scissors, be careful with the rotary cutter. It just did it all for me. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut all the rest of my squares so that I can have 40 of them, which is what I need to make this zipper pouch. All my pieces are now cut, and it's time to do the fun part, which is creating our panels. So again, I cut all of mine with an Accuquilt. If you don't have an Accuquilt, you can always cut them with a rotary cutter and ruler, and then you can also always get a pre-cut pack if you don't want to cut them out yourself. Okay, so we have 40 squares. We need to make 2 panels, one for the front, one for the back, 4 squares down, 5 squares across to make 20. So this is a fun part, mix and matching our fabrics to get them in the order that we like. Look at that cute fussy cut, and that one too. Oh, they're so fun. Maybe do this. What I tend to do is once I find a combination that I like, I tend to repeat it for the back as much as possible. Just makes life a little easier than try to come up with 2 whole combinations, the front and the back. But if you like coming up with combinations, feel free to make the front and the back of yours completely different. Alright, I'm happy with this combination. I'm going to go ahead now and start sewing. We're going to sew the top row all together, the second row together, third and fourth. So sewing all these little squares into 4 rows with 5 squares in each. Okay, now I have 4 rows of 5 squares each. They've all been sewn together. Our next step is to press our rows so that we can then sew all of this together. We're going to press our rows alternating directions. That means that if the first row, you're going to press them all to the left. So every single seam is going to get pressed to the left. And then the next row, we're going to press them all to the right. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a really nice ability to nest your seams. So nesting your seams mean that they fit nicely into one another. Obviously these aren't pressed, but to give you an idea. When I put them together like this, I've got one going one way, one going the other way. They sit together really nicely. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that. We're going to pin the first 2 rows together. Again, nesting those seams. If you're a pinner, go ahead and pin on all the seams. If you're not a pinner, you can always eyeball it at your machine. I'm going to repeat with the 3rd and 4th rows. Take these over to the machine and we're going to stitch each of these together. And don't forget that everything you're doing to the first panel you have to do on the back as well. So you can go ahead and do both at the same time, or if you prefer, you can do one at a time. Finish one whole panel, then do the second one. Alright. Because we've got quite a few seams, I'm going to go ahead and press these open. If you don't like pressing open, feel free to press to one side or another. I just like that it minimizes the bulk of the seam a little bit. Tiny iron is not quite as powerful as my big one, so just making sure everything's nice and pressed. Okay. I'm going to pin these two together. It's going to be my last seam before I can start quilting this and turning it into a zipper pouch. And don't forget, you have to make two. Pressing this one as well. Must press it more. You guys, look how cute this is. Oh, I'm really excited. This is turning into a zipper pouch. Okay, so we are going to take one piece of our batting. I always save all my scraps from my quilts, so whenever I'm making quilts, I save the batting scraps and I use them for zipper pouches and other projects like this. And you'll notice that this one has already been franken-batting, which is when you sew together two pieces of batting to make a bigger piece. And I have a blog post on that on my blog at patchworkandpoodles.com, so if that's something that interests you, go ahead and check that out. We're going to baste this right onto our batting. Because I'm using scraps that I've previously used for quilting and I'm a spray baster, they actually are already a little bit sticky. So I'm actually not going to put any other pins. I'm just going to go straight for it. But definitely feel free to put some safety pins. If you're a spray baster, you can add a little bit of spray. Don't spray on your pieces, though, spray on your batting just to avoid any overspray. And we're going to go ahead and quilt this up. So just to remind you, we've got our panel on the front, we've got our batting, and that's it. No backing, because we're going to have a lining down the road when we turn it into a zipper pouch. Go ahead and quilt this however you want. And don't forget, make two. So you should have two panels by now, two pieces of batting. You're going to quilt both of them up. 1, 2. Our panels are done. I went ahead and I did a victory lap all the way around them, which means I added a stitch all the way around at about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. This is just going to help them stay together nicely once I trim them out. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to cut these out. They should measure 8.5 by 10.5, and then we're going to put them aside and we're going to start working on our zipper pouch. So the zipper portion of our zipper pouch. First thing that we're going to do for our zipper is we're going to take that 2-inch square that we had cut out way in the beginning when we started. We're going to fold this guy in half and press. Open it up and fold it in half towards the center. Press. And same thing with the other side. So both halves should meet right in the center. Big press. And then you can go ahead and fold it right back up. And one more press if you want. So this is going to be the zipper tab. It's going to go to the end of our zipper, just to give it the length that we need for it to fit our zipper pouch. Next, we're going to take our zipper and we're going to start prepping that as well. Here is my zipper. I'm using a metal 9-inch zipper. You can definitely use polyester if you want. A couple things to note: if you're using a metal zipper, do not sew over the teeth. Do not sew over the teeth. It'll be bad for your machine, needles will break, things will be bad. Don't do it. Things to watch out for with a polyester zipper is your iron. So definitely don't melt your zipper. They are pretty resistant, but just be careful of them. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add the zipper tab to the end of our zipper. So I'm gonna look over here at the end. You wanna see wherever that zipper stop is, it's gonna fit right here. So obviously my zipper tape is too long. I'm gonna go ahead and cut that. I'm gonna fit my zipper tab inside. I kind of like to see if there's like a prettier side. I don't think it really matters, but I do that anyway. So it's gonna fit right here, and then we're gonna stitch all the way across. So start in the zipper tab, stitch all the way across, and we're gonna end here. As close as possible as we can, but again, not anywhere near that metal piece. There it is. Beautiful. I'm gonna go ahead and cut so that it's flush with my zipper tape. The reason we always start a little longer, it's easier to start off the zipper and stitch across than it is to try to start on the zipper. For the top of our zipper, we're going to fold these pieces back at an angle. What that's going to do is going to help that top of the zipper pouch to lay really nicely once we sew everything together. So open the zipper tape about halfway, flip it around so that the back of the zipper is facing you. Take one of the top pieces and fold it back at a diagonal, about a 90 degree. I lied, 45 degree. And then you're going to put a couple stitches here, just a stay stitch, nothing fancy. Try to get them close to the edge as possible so that they'll be hidden once we sew everything together. We're going to put a couple stitches, and then we're going to repeat the same thing on this side, about a 45 degree angle, and we're going to stitch. Are they the prettiest stay stitches you've ever seen? No. Does it matter? No. Our whole point is just to hold this piece together until we are ready to put in more permanent stitches. I'm just trimming some of those threads though, because I don't want those to show up on the front of my zipper pouch once everything's said and done. Gather up your pieces. It's zipper pouch making time. We're going to start with one of our main pieces, so you can put the other one aside, and our zipper. We want to line our zipper up to the top edge of our main exterior piece. You'll notice that your zipper does not go all the way across. There's about a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch space left, and that's good. That's going to be where we're going to stitch that pouch together, and again, we don't want to stitch through our metal teeth, so we want that space to be there. So I'm going to line it up. You can choose to measure, measure your zipper, measure your pouch. It should be a 1/2 inch on each side, and then nestle that zipper right in. I'm going to go ahead and just eyeball it for you guys. But yes, you can definitely, if you were to measure, you would measure and put a pin. I'll just show you. Measure and put a pin. We'll pretend I measured. And then once you had your 2 pins in place, about 1/2 inch again on either side, so 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. You just nestle that right in, and it should fit right about in there. My zipper for some reason is a little longer than normal, but it'll be just fine. I'm going to put a couple pins, just one at the beginning and one at the end, to hold my zipper in place. We're going to take this over to our machine, and we're going to stitch with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way across this top edge. So 1/8 of an inch. We're just sewing these two together, and we're going to go do that with our machine. If you do have a zipper foot for your machine, now is a good time to put it on. We're going to use it for the next several steps that we're going to do, which is inserting your zipper. So if you have a zipper foot, definitely go put it on your machine. If you don't have a zipper foot, pick whatever the narrowest foot that you have is. It's going to really help you to make sure that you get that nice even stitch all the way across. Alright, so it's a little hard to see because I'm using peach thread, but I stitch an 1/8 of an inch away. So now my zipper and my top of my pouch are attached together. The next thing that we're going to do is we are going to put one of our lining pieces right side down, and then we're going to stitch this to our zipper. So right side up, right side down. What you'll want to do first is, because we're going to be starting on this side, you want to open up your zipper. I open it about halfway. You're going to be able to stitch right about to where the zipper is. You're going to have to either back stitch, cut your thread, move your zipper, and start and finish the rest. Or if you have a foot that goes up really high, you might be able to wrestle that zipper out of the way without having to back stitch and cut your thread. Okay, so my lining is set. You'll see here I backstitched, cut my thread, and I did the rest so that I could get that zipper out of the way. And I sewed all 3 layers together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So the first one here gets sewn to the zipper with a 1/8 of an inch, and then you sew all 3 layers together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We've got 1/2 of our zipper pouch done, which is really exciting. It's starting to take shape, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the other side the same way. I'm going to go ahead and zip my zipper, just it's a little easier to see that way. Take my other top piece, right, my other exterior panel. I'm going to sandwich it together, panel to panel. Now just make sure if you have any directional fabrics that the zipper goes to the top. So it look like this, where both sides the fabrics are going away from the zipper. You don't want to put it this way. This might make sense when you're sewing it all up, but then they'll be upside down when you're done. So zipper goes top edge, all the fabrics are facing me. And this time I'm not going to put pins to measure the distance. What I do is I use that other exterior panel as my guide, and I just line them all up together. I'm going to put a couple pins just so that things do stay in place, and go ahead and stitch that at my machine with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so sewn this one on top. We're going to repeat the same thing that we did before. We're going to put our next lining piece on, right sides together. So now this time the lining will match up with the lining, and again right sides together, and we're going to sew this seam at the top with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You have survived a zipper! Woohoo! Okay, so open it up. Here's what you should have. You should have 2 lining pieces to butt up to your batting and 2 front pieces. We're going to go ahead and we're going to press all the seams away from the zipper. If you have a polyester zipper, be careful not to melt your zipper. If you have a metal zipper, they get hot, so don't touch them. They really get hot. Metal heats up. Who knew, right? They do. Okay, so nice press away. This part's important. Actually, it seems like just, one more step till you complete, but you do want both sides of your zipper pouch to be pressed about the same amount away, and you want to stitch them down. We're going to top stitch them the same distance away. The reason is it's going to affect the length of your pouch, which if you don't have them the same, then they have a little bit more trouble lining up when you go to sew everything together. Okay, here we are. I'm going to top stitch on both sides about an 1/8 of an inch away. I'm just trying to get close to that zipper to really make sure that that zipper is not going anywhere. That's also going to help keep all those layers together. And the last thing that it does too is it keeps the lining as well as the main fabric away from the zipper, so it's not going to get caught when you're trying to open and close it. Okay, so I almost forgot. You definitely can do this step way before, but we're going to put our little twill tape tag onto our zipper pouch. This is purely cosmetic. I just think they look really pretty. Yeah, they look pretty. They add just a little flair. So fold it in half. Again, this is something you can do before you start sewing the zipper in and everything, but I kind of forgot, so we're going to do it now. Fold it in half. Well, you want it to extend about a 1/4 of an inch and line it up on the front panel, front top left square. Line it up with the seam right here. I'm going to put a pin in, and then I am going to go ahead and I'm going to stitch this in about an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so I just went through the batting, the exterior panel. I did not touch the lining, and I basted that with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to trim it. I'm not going to trim it all the way back to here. I'm just going to leave a little bit overhanging. This stuff does fray, so it helps it to just stay in place. Okay, time to put it all together. Make sure you open your zipper. This is very, very important. Open your zipper, open your zipper, open your zipper. You will be very sad if you don't. It makes life very, very difficult. Put the pieces together. You'll have the 2 exterior pieces together, your 2 lining pieces together, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to pin things in place, trying to line up those seams the best that we can. I don't worry too much about all of my squares lining up, but it's important that the top edge lines up. That's what you're going to see on your zipper pouch, and if it's wonky, it's very noticeable. So I like to put one pin here, one pin on the other side. The rest of it I kind of just go for it freely, but if you like pins or it makes you feel a little bit better, go ahead. You can pin all the way around. Normally what you would want to do is you'd want to stitch all the way across, leaving a space in the lining so that you're able to turn the whole bag right side up. I'm going to tell you a little trick. What I like to do is start on the bottom of the main fabric, back stitch, go across, down, to right about here, back stitch, because we're going to have to leave an opening to be able to turn our bag. And then on the other side, right, because we've just done this, then I turn the whole thing around, back stitch, and I do the same thing on the other side. The reason I do this is because it's a lot easier for your machine to go from bulky to light than it is to go from light to bulky. So if you're trying to go from the lining over here and move over that really bulky spot where we've got all those seams together and that zipper, all the things, the machine tends to get really unhappy here. So 2 tips, go from bulky to light. So start in the middle here, go to here, do the same on the other side, leaving a space in the lining for us to be able to turn that lining. And the second tip is put your walking foot on if you don't have it already. It's going to really help you for this stuff. Here is our finished piece. I have left about a 3-inch opening in the lining so that we're able to turn it around. And we're going to flip everything inside out. One trick too is to back stitch at the end of when the opening where the lining is, to leave a little bit of back stitching. It helps that when you're then opening the bag, your stitches aren't coming out. But also, if you back stitch, be very careful not to rip your fabric by being over exuberant turning your bag around. This is my favorite part of making a bag, because you think you know what it's going to look like, but it always looks so much better when it's completed, and it's really exciting. So just take your time when you're putting, when you're flipping your bag around. Just take your time. There's no hurry. There it goes. At this point too, I will try to open my zipper all the way up. That helps. This would be where if you forgot to open your zipper and now you turn your bag inside out, it's really kind of hard. I've had to do it before. It was not my favorite. Lots of sweating, a few curse words, it happens. Okay, I stick my hand in the opening. Try to get those corners nice and crisp. Or as crisp as we can get them with the amount of layers that we have going on. You guys, look how cute that is. It's so cute. The last thing that we have to do is we have to sew this up. So what I like to do is I like to push my lining out. You can either press with your sewing or with your iron. You can either press with your iron or you can finger crease it. I finger crease. A little spot here. And then go ahead and stitch that on my machine. You can switch your thread color too if you want. I don't bother. I have stitched it as close as I can to that edge, both sides, making sure I catch all the layers. Stuff that lining right back into our bag. And there we are, a really fun Scrappy zipper pouch. If you liked this content, make sure you subscribe to my channel, and as always, thanks for watching.